Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in, and what a busy weekend we had. President Donald Trump vowed yesterday to avenge the deaths of 3 U.S. service members killed in action as the conflict involving Iran deepens across the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz became a flashpoint yesterday after U.S. Israeli strikes on Iran under Operation Epic Fury triggered electronic warfare activity and multiple attacks on vessels along one of the world's most critical energy waterways. We have the latest update for you in today's show. Federal law enforcement agencies are on high alert across the country in the event that terrorist cells might target U.S. cities in retaliation of the Iranian attacks. One example, the FBI said a shooting that left 3 people dead and 14 others wounded in downtown Austin, Texas over the weekend was potentially an act of terrorism. And South Carolina is at the top of the list for a change. Have any idea which list it is? Stick around. I have the full story for you. I may even give you a little tip here in just a few minutes.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
The President of the United States is now openly saying that the joint U.S. Israeli war against Iran could last 4 weeks or so. 4 weeks. Not a weekend strike, not a limited response, not a symbolic show of force, but likely a month of war. Here's the president.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of countless thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case.
And of course, our prayer is that we don't lose any more Americans. Ideally, we wouldn't lose any lives at all. But we know that when a conflict like this starts, that there is going to be loss of life. 3 American service members already dead, 5 more seriously wounded, according to reports from over the weekend. The Pentagon says their identities were withheld initially until families were notified. These are real people. Their sons, daughters, moms, dads from real American hometowns. And whatever you think about foreign policy, whatever your view is on Iran, Israel, or the Middle East, that part should have you pause and think about these people who've lost their lives, Americans who've lost their lives. The president made the announcement in a True Social video address. He called them true American patriots who had made the ultimate sacrifice. He said, "We continue the mission for which they gave their lives." And the president vowed to avenge their deaths. The question isn't just about strategy, it's about American resolve. And let's be clear about the mission. According to U.S. officials and Israeli leadership, the goal is to obliterate Iran's military capability, especially its missile stockpiles, so it can no longer strike Israel or American interests across the region. We're talking about destroying ships, bases, command nodes, weapons depots, naval assets. The president said 9 important Iranian naval ships are already being destroyed, and more are being targeted. Operation Epic Fury is the name. Iran has responded, of course, by launching attacks on U.S. bases across the Middle East. In Israel, sadly, 9 people were killed in Bet Shemesh, outside of Jerusalem. Shrapnel hit airports in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I mean, as you can imagine, the region is on edge. Gulf states are walking a tightrope. Oil markets are watching every headline. Again, as I mentioned a minute ago, this will likely disrupt some shipments of oil. And somewhere inside of Tehran, you saw the images of black smoke reportedly rising from the compound of the supreme leader. Iran's leadership structure reportedly has taken devastated hits. The question floating out everywhere now was who leads Iran from this point forward? And how does that vacuum get filled? Because history tells us that power vacuums in the Middle East rarely produce calm democracies. Now, here's the part that's pure Donald Trump. He went directly to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and said to them, the message was clear, lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. He said, that's the way it is. Then he spoke directly to the Iranian people, saying, be brave, be bold, be heroic. Take back your country. America is with you. Now, you have to understand that the Iranian people have no guns. It's not like they have a right to bear arms in Iran. Very few civilians have arms. And the weapons that are there are black market. So we can sit back and we can urge them to take back their country. But when you don't have a means to do so, I'm not quite sure how effective it is. And that's why it's so crucial that some of their current military leaders hopefully will see the light and decide that enough is enough, and they're going to help turn the country around. There was some crack in the armor, if you will, over the weekend, because the one report had that there was someone within the new Iranian leadership who had reached out to the president. The president said they want to talk, but I said that they should have talked last week, not this week. And he seemed to suggest that he's open to talking, but only after this current operation is completed. I don't think they're going to pull back. They're going to make the strikes that they have planned and then maybe open up room for negotiation. White House also said that the president spoke yesterday with leaders from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Jordan. And that kind of tells you something there. This is not just U.S. and Israel versus Iran. This is a regional realignment moment. Sunni Arab states have long viewed Iran's regime as destabilizing, but they also don't want full regional collapse. They don't want oil terminals burning. They don't want airports closed. They don't want missiles flying overhead. So they want to be a part of this to hopefully bring it to an end very quickly. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting what happens in the next few days, the next week or so. But I got to believe that you take President Trump at his word when he says we're probably looking at 4, 5, 6 weeks. I think there's probably a plan in place to do just that.
GOP shots like Ozempic are everywhere right now, but here's the question. What happens when you stop? If you don't fix the reason your body gained weight in the first place, the weight comes back. Joey Hudson here at PhD Weight Loss. They don't just treat the weight as the problem. They treat it as a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or inflammation. If you don't correct those, no shot or hack will ever last. PhD looks at you holistically to improve your health span, your energy, and your longevity, because losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off for life is another. Right now, when you call PhD Weight Loss and mention Joey Hudson, you'll receive 2 free weeks in the program, and they'll cover the cost of your food. That's real results with zero guesswork. Again, mention Joey Hudson when you call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Visit them online at myphdweightloss.com. Stop chasing weight. Start fixing what actually is causing it. Call today. Be sure and tell them Joey Hudson sent you. Get you 2 free weeks in the program. 864-644-1900.
As expected, the Strait of Hormuz region became a real flashpoint yesterday. I mentioned it a minute ago after the U.S. Israeli strikes on Iran under Operation Epic Fury. It triggered a electronic warfare activity, multiple attacks on vessels along one of the world's most critical energy waterways, according to reports from that region. The sudden escalation, of course, followed a February 28th warning from U.S. maritime authorities urging commercial vessels to avoid strategic waterways if they possibly could, including the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Sea, citing heightened security risk. And look, it's just not a good place to be right now. The advisory warned it is recommended that vessels keep clear of this area if possible. The Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and adjacent waters are the most dangerous place right now for commercial shipping, Jacob Larson, head of maritime security at BIMCO, told Fox News. Larson said ships in the Persian Gulf are under threat from Iranian attacks. And look, they're just looking for somebody to shoot one of their missiles at right now, hoping that maybe it's an American ship. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations and regional authorities reported multiple maritime incidents listed as attacks yesterday. One vessel west of Sharjah was rocked by an explosion from an unknown projectile that detonated close alongside. Another tanker north of Muscat, Oman, was struck above the waterline, sparking a fire that was later brought under control. Again, it's just not a good place to have your shipping vessels right now, which means it's going to disrupt trade for a while. How long? Who knows? But this is a very busy area, and when you have these vessels being struck like this, you just can't take the chance. A third vessel was near Mena Secure. It was also hit by a projectile that ignited a blaze aboard it as well. Now, this is just damage from missiles and attacks. But one of the things that I had not thought about, and this sort of compounds the physical threats, but is the surge in electronic warfare. And I really hadn't thought about this. According to Windward Reporting, which is a group that keeps up with data like this, there was widespread GPS and automatic identification system known as AIS interference impacting over 1,000 ships. So I guess they have some way to disrupt GPS, which, everybody's relying on GPS now.
the old navigation ways where the captain had all of his maps and stuff up in the bridge just doesn't work anymore. They all depend on GPS. Windward cited widespread navigation disruption near Iran's Bandar Abbas port, with ships falsely appearing at airports, a nuclear power plant, and inland locations. Several new AIS jamming clusters were also identified across Qatari and Omani and Iranian waters, according to Windward. Major shipping company Maersk announced that it would reroute some services away from the region, citing crew and cargo safety. Roughly 20% of global oil and gas exports pass through this strait. 20%. That's a lot. And traffic's already thin, of course, with some tankers reversing course or switching off AIS signals. We were told just prior to this war starting, to the initial onslaught, that evidently they had been warned, and you had hundreds and hundreds of commercial cargo ships just outside of the strait, not entering the strait, I guess anticipating that there was going to be trouble. Some of the industry groups also warned of Houthi retaliation in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, while many of the shipping analysts cautioned that Iran could seize vessels tied to U.S. or Israeli interest. Again, it's just not a good place to be. If you're in the commercial shipping business, you don't want your ships in that region right now, and especially if you're an American or Israeli shipping company. Mr. Larson from this maritime company said the Houthis have threatened to resume attacks on the ships in the Red Sea, in the Strait and Gulf of Aden. The Strait of Hormuz faces heightened security, of course, after these strikes, and will probably be like this for weeks. Ships with business connections to the U.S. and Israeli interests are considered more likely targets, though others have been struck deliberately as well. It's almost like they're just warning people, hey, don't come into our area right now. We're in a bad mood. We've been struck by missiles from the U.S. and Israel. Don't mess with us right now. Tank owners associated with Intertanko also warned members that the expectation is that the Houthis will respond and will recommence their attacks on all shipping in the area. He said there's no signs of Iranian attempts to close the strait with sea mines or naval mines, although this can change at short notice. So just a lot going on there. How this is going to affect the price of oil, we don't know yet. But you have to assume that it probably will affect it somehow. And other goods and services that are shipped through that area. It's not just oil. You have liquefied natural gas, for example. Qatar is one of the world's largest LNG exporters. They send the vast majority of the natural gas shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. Countries in Asia and Europe rely heavily on this supply. Refined petroleum products like gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, petrochemicals. These refined products head to global markets to power vehicles, airplanes, factories, supply chains. They too go through. And other general cargo, consumer goods, industrial equipment, construction materials, food shipments. It's a major artery for trade coming out of the Gulf region. And its narrowest point, the strait is only about 21 miles wide, with the shipping lanes just a couple of miles across in each direction. So any military tension, any mining or blocking, or any threat of mines and blocks can slow things down and can cause a lot of pain for people in that area. Continuing today's show, we've talked about what's happening in Iran and that Middle East region. Let's take a minute now and talk about what's happening here at home, or what could happen here at home. American counterterrorism agencies are quietly increasing surveillance inside of the U.S. There's no public report of a specific credible threat, so keep that in mind. But we all have to know, we have to be vigilant. We have to know that it's a higher probability or possibility now than it was last week. There's heightened concern about possible retaliation and just how organized potential terrorist cells could be in the U.S. Federal, local law enforcement agencies have all stepped up security in major cities. That includes increased monitoring, more visible patrols, what officials describe as a precautionary posture. In other words, they're preparing in case something shifts. Not responding to something that already has, but just being ready. Security experts say the ripple effects of that operation may not stay confined to the Middle East. Chris Swecker, he's a former assistant FBI director, said that if Iranian-backed groups like Hezbollah or Hamas were ever going to attempt an attack inside of the United States, this would be the kind of moment that it would probably happen. Both organizations, he said, have had some presence in the U.S., dating back decades. Authorities are aware of networks and sympathizers, and they've monitored them for years. Mr. Swecker also raised concerns about border security over the past several years, arguing that vulnerabilities may have created additional risk. That, of course, is a policy debate that's been going in Washington for a while now. And we feel like our borders are safer than they've ever been, but that's from people, typically just civilians trying to cross the border for a better life. If we have terrorist cells out there trying to get in, that's a whole different story. FBI Director Kash Patel announced that counterterrorism and intelligence teams are now on high alert. He said he instructed those teams to mobilize all necessary security assets around the country. And while the military focuses on protection abroad, the FBI's job is to protecting the homeland. Mr. Patel said the Bureau will continue working around the clock. Jason Pack, a retired FBI supervisory special agent, said this kind of elevated monitoring is standard practice when the U.S. engages in military operations against adversaries. His point was straightforward. The threat environment doesn't stay frozen during overseas conflicts. It can shift, so agencies, again, prepare. He, too, talked about Hamas, Hezbollah. So, we're going to see a lot of activity at the Department of Homeland Security. Secretary Kristi Noem said that she's coordinating closely with federal intelligence and law enforcement partners to monitor and deter any potential threats. That coordination is happening as parts of DHS are dealing with a partial shutdown, though. What a bad time to have a partial shutdown with our intelligence community. This is raising practical questions about staffing and resources during an elevated alert posture. So Congress needs to get back in session and open the government, the portions that are closed. Again, there's no announced plots, no identified imminent threats, but officials acknowledge that situations like this can evolve very quickly. It can happen very quickly. And when the U.S. is conducting major military operations against an actor like Iran, particularly one with a long history of terrorism, domestic security agencies have to be ready. And that means more monitoring, more coordination, more visibility as a precaution. Now, interesting enough, over the weekend, you probably heard about the attack in Austin, Texas. And officials are saying that the shooting that left 3 people dead, 14 others wounded in downtown Austin, could have been an act of terrorism. Now, we don't know yet, but that's sort of the initial talking point. The suspect has been identified as I can't even pronounce it, Nadigia Diagi, 53-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in Senegal, lived in Texas. Multiple federal law enforcement sources have said Fox News that he is the accused shooter. He's wearing a sweatshirt that said Allah and an undershirt featuring an Iranian flag. Media has obtained photos of the alleged mass shooter armed with a rifle and in a sweater that says property of Allah. So this guy was bad news. Now, maybe he was planning to do this and just took advantage of the situation that was developing in the Middle East. But multiple federal sources have told the media that the suspect was naturalized in 2013 during the Obama administration. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that President Trump has been briefed on the shooting. The gunfire erupted just before 2 a.m. Sunday morning outside of Buford's Backyard Beer Garden. This, again, in Austin, Texas. It's a packed entertainment district after the suspect he's in a large SUV, drove around the block several times before opening fire, according to police. Alex Dorn, acting special agent in charge of the FBI San Antonio field office, said in a news conference yesterday, it's still way too early in the process to determine an exact motivation, but there were indicators on the subject and in his vehicle that indicate potential nexus to terrorism. Again, he said it's still too early to make determinations on that. That's why we're investigating it very closely with our partners in Austin with the police department there. Now, sources say that at least one search warrant involving the FBI agents is currently being executed in the area. Jason Pack, a retired FBI supervisory special agent with more than 2 decades of service, said investigators believe that this man may have acted alone rather than as part of a coordinated group, adding that mental illness is also being examined. So again, we don't know if he was some part of some terrorist organization, and if this was motivated by some type of terrorist organization. We just know what is being reported that he was wearing. Jason Pack said, my sourcing suggests he was not part of an organized cell. This looks like a lone actor who may have been inspired rather than directed. But again, the FBI says they're being very cautious. They're not ruling it out. And I think, too, they just want people to be aware. They want everybody to be on their toes, to be thinking that we could be subject to these types of attacks. Senator John Cornyn of Texas was asked about the shooting, and he said, what it does emphasize to me is the importance of vetting people before they come across the border. He said part of the problem is that the Biden administration for 4 years had open border policies and let who knows what into the country. The senator said this isn't about people continuing to come into the country because we know President Trump has secured the border. This is about what happens with people already here. And that's a valid point. That's a scary point. Now, again, this man evidently came in under Barack Obama, but we know that hundreds, if not thousands of more people like him came in under Joe Biden as well. And we don't know what they're doing because in a lot of cases, we don't even know where they are. We just know that at some point they made their way into the country. And that's what's scary about this whole thing. And it's been what's scary about it all along. When you have had open borders for at least 4 years, and Joe Biden just opened them and welcomed everybody with open arms, and there were reports of people from Iran, from the Middle East, from China, from Russia, who would come to South America, make their way up, and come into our country. And you got to think they were coming here for a reason. What was the reason? We don't know. But at a time like this, it makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Does it concern you that maybe there are terrorist cells out there right now that are making their plans to take advantage of this situation in Iran? And maybe they're in the upstate of South Carolina where I live. Maybe they're in other parts of the country, in major cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, Texas, wherever. But we have to recognize the fact, we have to acknowledge that they're out there. You agree? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Send me a quick email. You can leave me a message, too, on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com, and you'll get the very best price of every product that Mike Lindell has. For example, the classic MyPillow, regular $49.98. When you use promo code Joey, you're going to get it for $17.98. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever made in the U.S. with the MyPillow My Mattress Topper. Save up to $100 with promo code Joey. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets as low as $29.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. Always use promo code Joey. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate.
let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On the text line, Albert says, while Iranians thank President Trump and wave the U.S. flag, our demented Democrat leadership condemn him and want to replace our flag with a pride flag. Long live President Trump. I agree with you there, Albert. Paul says, this is Paul from Greenville, supposedly Hakeem Jeffries is going to force votes next week against the president's action in Iran. Doesn't that mean they have to end the shutdown? Well, Paul, look, if they think that they can force Donald Trump into doing something, maybe even ceasing our engagement with the Israelis, they'd probably go along with reopening the government in that case, wouldn't they? Look, they got to get back to work and open the government, because it makes me a little concerned. It's a little scary to think that in a time like this, we're in the middle of a partial shutdown, affecting the exact agency who is tasked with keeping us safe. Appreciate your text messages. Look, there's so much. So many different levels that we could talk about with this situation in Iran, and we'll obviously be talking about it a lot in the coming days and weeks as we keep you informed of what's happening. I wanted to touch on this for a minute. This is sort of a lighter moment, if you will. I happened to see this story over the weekend. It was on FoxNews.com. And it talks about South Carolina being at the top of a list. And, you know, South Carolina doesn't make the top of list that often. You have any idea what list this is? This is kind of interesting. South Carolina tops the list of the best tippers in the country, with an average tip rate of 20.71%, making it, according to this study, the only state to surpass the 20% threshold, according to a report from JIM, which is an AI-powered financial platform for small sellers. It broke down tipping behavior across all 50 states. Here's what they did. More than 89,068 verified tipping transactions from over 6,000 acting merchants in 177 different business categories throughout 2025 were analyzed to determine the states with the highest and lowest average tip percentages, according to this news release. Ricardo Ceci, Chief Growth Officer of CloudWalk, said tipping behavior is evolving, but one thing is consistent. Americans still gravitate towards the 15 to 20% standard, regardless of the industry. What is changing is where tipping shows up and what it means economically. We're seeing meaningful tip dollars flowing into higher value services beyond restaurants, which has real implications for small operators who rely on fast, fair access to their earnings, according to the report. A new report found that wide differences in tipping rates across the U.S. Exist, with some states averaging above 20%, others closer to 13%. Rounding out the top five are Wisconsin at 19.15%, Connecticut at 18.43%, Maryland at 18.4%, and Nevada at 16.88%. On the other end of the spectrum, on the low end, Oregon ranks as the least generous state at 13.1%. That doesn't surprise me. Those bunch of nuts in Oregon, all they think about is themselves. Followed by Virginia at 13.58%, New York
Now, New York did surprise me at 13.72, Alaska at just over 14%, and Illinois at just over 14%. The average tip percentage nationally is 15.46%, falling within that long-standing 15 to 20% range. What do you tip? Love to get your feedback. Send me an email. Text me. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line. Do you tip 15%, 20%? The average tip value is $12.44, with higher ticket services such as car repair, transportation, specialized personal services often generating larger dollar amounts than restaurant tabs. Now, when I think about tipping, I usually just think about tips in restaurants, your waiter. But a lot of other people evidently tip for other services. They go in and they get their car repaired. They may tip. Now, transportation is a big one. I use Uber quite often, and I always tip my Uber driver. But here's what drives me insane, and you've probably seen this yourself. When you go in, let's just say, I'm going to use an example of a butcher shop, like a small market. You go in, you buy a couple of steaks. They package them up for you, hand them to you. They turn the little screen around, and the first thing you see there is what you want to tip them. Now, I'll be honest, and maybe I'm cheap. Tell me if I am. But I don't think I should be tipping somebody in a grocery store or a market who just wrapped up a couple of steaks for me. Do you? Am I off here? Do you tip your butcher? But there are other things like that too. I've never quite understood, some of the restaurants, when you have a to-go order, and you walk up to the counter, you place your order, they hand you the bag, and they turn the little screen around, and first thing is a tip. And I just feel like if they're handing me a bag, isn't that what they're being paid for? Is to fulfill that order that I walked up to the counter and placed? Again, love to get your comments. Email me, joe@joeyhudson.com, because that's just not what I think about when I think about tipping. But it is interesting, though. Back to South Carolina, finally being number one on a list like this at being good tippers. That makes me feel good about the Palmetto State, that we are generous and that we like to express our appreciation. Now, sometimes if Peg and I are at a restaurant and we get exceptional service, then I may do more than 20%. I may do 25%, and I have done 30%. Because if somebody's trying hard and they're trying to provide a service to you, then they should be appreciated. Now, one of the things they point out here, too, is that South Carolina also is one of those states that has a very low minimum wage for wait staff. It's only $2.13 per hour. Now, under federal law, according to this article, employers in South Carolina and in other states that have very similar minimum wage like that, they can pay the workers $2.13 an hour as long as their tips bring them up to at least the standard minimum wage. So I guess they have to check that out each night or at the end of the week or whatever. But again, I'm glad that South Carolina is being recognized as generous people. I got a text message here about tipping your barber or beauty shop. Yeah, okay. I guess that's I do tip my barber. I hadn't thought about that. I do that. So maybe there are others that I tip. I'm just not thinking about it. When I'm traveling, and I do the curbside check-in of my baggage, which is what I like to do most often, I tip them too. Interesting. Tell me who you tip. How much do you tip? Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends.
Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.